The planet Lyria 7 was unlike anything Emma Taylor had ever seen. Its sky shimmered with hues of purple and gold, and the ground beneath her feet felt soft, almost spongy, like walking on a thick layer of moss. The air smelled faintly sweet, as though flowers were blooming somewhere nearby, even though no plants were visible. Emma took a deep breath, trying to calm her nerves. She wasn't sure what she was doing here, or why they had chosen her for this mission. All she knew was that the Valens, an alien species with crystalline bodies that sparkled under the strange light of their twin suns, had summoned her to teach them something about humanity. Jack Miller, the pilot who had brought her here, stood a few steps behind her, his hands resting on the controls of the small spacecraft they had used to land. Jack was a quiet man, someone who preferred machines to people most of the time. He didn't say much, but his presence was comforting. He glanced at Emma now, raising an eyebrow as if to ask, "You ready?" Emma gave him a small nod before, turning her attention back to the scene in front of her. Two figures approached from the direction of the Valen outpost, their forms glowing faintly as they moved. One was taller than the other, its body shifting colors in a way that reminded Emma of sunlight dancing on water. This one stopped a few feet away and spoke in a voice that seemed to echo inside her mind rather than through her ears. "Welcome, Emma Taylor. I am Zyrak, leader of the Valens." The second figure, shorter and with a softer glow, introduced itself as Lirin, Zyrak's assistant. Emma swallowed hard, feeling out of place despite her years of experience teaching survival, skills in some of Earth's harshest environments. She had worked with students ranging from eager teenagers to hardened adults, but none of them had been aliens. Still, she forced herself to smile and nodded politely. "Thank you for inviting me," she said, her voice steady even though her heart raced. "I'm here to help however I can." Zyrak tilted his head slightly, the movement making his crystalline form refract light in dazzling patterns. "We have heard much about your species, Emma Taylor. Your ability to adapt to new situations fascinates us. Our own society struggles with change, and it has become clear that our inability to adjust threatens our survival. We hope you can teach us how humans manage to thrive despite constant challenges." Emma blinked, taken aback by the weight of the request. Teaching survival skills was one thing, but explaining the essence of human adaptability to an alien species, that was something entirely different. She hesitated for a moment, unsure where to begin. Then she thought about all the lessons she had taught over the years, the stories of early humans migrating across continents, the ingenuity of inventors who turned raw materials into tools, the resilience of communities rebuilding after disasters. Maybe, just maybe, she could distill those lessons into something the Valens could understand. "I'll do my best," she finally replied, meeting Zyrak's gaze. His eyes, or what passed for eyes, seemed to shimmer with curiosity. "But I need to know more about your situation first. What kind of challenges are you facing?" Zyrak gestured for her to follow him, and together the group made their way toward the Valen outpost. It was a sprawling structure made of translucent material that glowed faintly, blending seamlessly with the landscape. Inside, the walls pulsed, gently as if alive, and the air hummed with energy. Emma couldn't help but marvel at the technology around her. Everything was so advanced compared to anything on Earth, yet there was also a sense of fragility, as though the entire place could collapse if pushed too far. As they walked, Zyrak explained the Valen's predicament. Their home planet had undergone drastic environmental changes over the centuries, forcing them to relocate multiple times. Each relocation required them to rebuild their society from scratch, but their rigid social structures made adaptation difficult. They followed strict rules and traditions that left little room for innovation or flexibility. Now, faced with another impending crisis, they feared they might not survive unless they found a way to change. Emma listened intently, absorbing every detail. By the time they reached a large chamber filled with glowing crystals and holographic displays, she had a clearer picture of the problem. The Valens weren't incapable of learning. They simply lacked the mindset to embrace uncertainty. They clung to order because chaos terrified them, and that fear kept them trapped in cycles of stagnation. Jack, who had remained silent throughout the tour, finally spoke up. "So basically, you guys need to loosen up a bit," he said, earning a sharp look from Emma. But Zyrak didn't seem offended. Instead, he regarded Jack with interest. "In simple terms, yes. We seek to understand how your species embraces uncertainty without losing cohesion." Emma shot Jack another glance, silently urging him to stay quiet, then turned back to Zyrak. "Humans aren't perfect," she began. "We make mistakes all the time. Sometimes we fail spectacularly. But what sets us apart is our willingness to try again. We learn from our failures and keep moving forward. That's what adaptation is all about." Zyrak nodded slowly, considering her words. "We would like to learn this skill. Will you teach us?" Emma hesitated once more, weighing the enormity of the task ahead. Could she really impart such a fundamental aspect of human nature to beings so different from herself? And even if she succeeded, would it be enough to save them? Despite her doubts, she found herself nodding. "Yes," she said firmly, "I'll teach you." With that agreement, the stage was set for what would undoubtedly be the greatest challenge of Emma's life. As she looked around the room at the shimmering forms of the Valens, she felt a mix of excitement and trepidation. This was uncharted territory, not just for her, but for both species involved. Yet, as she reminded herself, humans had always thrived in uncharted territory. If anyone could rise to the occasion, it was her. The next morning, Emma Taylor woke up early, her mind already racing with ideas on how to begin teaching the Valens about human adaptability. She stepped out of the small living quarters assigned to her within the outpost and found Jack Miller, tinkering with a piece of equipment nearby. He looked up as she approached, his hands covered in grease, but his expression calm. "Morning," he said simply, giving her a nod. Emma returned the greeting and glanced around at the glowing walls of the outpost. It was still strange to her, this alien world with its shimmering structures and quiet hum of energy. Yet she felt a growing determination to make a difference. Here, Zyrak and Liren arrived shortly after, their crystalline forms casting faint reflections on the smooth floor. They greeted Emma warmly, though their voices remained calm and measured. Zyrak explained that they had prepared a space for her lessons, a large chamber filled with holographic projectors and interactive displays. Emma nodded, grateful for their cooperation, and followed them to the designated area. Jack trailed behind, carrying a small device he had modified to help with the demonstrations dock once inside the chamber. Emma took a deep breath and turned to face her audience. A group of Valens had gathered, their forms glowing softly as they waited silently for her to begin. Emma felt a flicker of nervousness, but pushed it aside. She reminded herself that these beings were curious, not judgmental, and that her goal was to share knowledge, not to impress anyone. Humans have been adapting to change for thousands of years. She began, her voice steady. "It's part of who we are. When our ancestors first left Africa, they faced environments unlike anything they had ever known. Deserts, jungles, icy plains, all of them required new ways of surviving." As she spoke, Jack activated one of the holographic projectors, creating an image of early humans migrating across vast landscapes. The Valens watched intently, their glowing forms shifting slightly, as if captivated by the scene. Emma continued, explaining how humans learned to use fire for warmth and cooking, how they developed tools from stone and wood, and how they eventually created agriculture to settle in one place. Each step represented a leap forward, a way of adjusting to new challenges. To illustrate this, Jack set up another simulation, showing settlers building shelters during harsh winters. The Valens murmured among themselves, their telepathic communication, creating a soft buzz in the air. Liren stepped forward, her form shimmering with curiosity. "These humans you speak of, they succeeded because they worked together, yes?" she asked. Emma smiled, pleased by the question. "Exactly," she replied. "Humans are social creatures. We rely on each other to solve problems and survive. No one person can do everything alone." To drive the point home, Emma shared a personal story. She told them about the time she had lost her home to a wildfire years ago. The flames had swept through her community without warning, leaving destruction in their wake. But instead of giving up, Emma and her neighbors had banded together to rebuild. They pooled their resources, shared their skills, and supported one another through the hardships. "We adjusted," she said firmly, "and we kept going." The Valens listened quietly, their expressions unreadable, but their attention unwavering. Emma could see that they were beginning to grasp the concept, but she knew words alone wouldn't be enough. She needed to show them what adaptation truly meant. Jack suggested using the simulations to create interactive scenarios where the Valens could experience problem-solving firsthand. Together, they designed a series of challenges based on real-life situations humans had faced throughout history. One scenario involved building a shelter using limited materials, while another required finding food and water in a barren environment. Each challenge was designed to encourage creativity and teamwork. When the first simulation began, the Valens hesitated. Their rigid adherence to tradition made it difficult for them to think outside the box. Some tried to follow strict rules, only to find that those rules didn't apply in the simulated environment. Others became frustrated when their initial attempts failed. Emma watched closely, offering guidance, but resisting the urge to intervene too much. She wanted them to discover solutions on their own. Liren was the first to break free from the constraints of tradition. Faced with a task that required improvisation, she combined two unrelated techniques to create something entirely new. Her success sparked a ripple effect among the others. Slowly but surely, the Valens began to experiment, trying different approaches and learning from their mistakes. Emma noticed a subtle shift in their demeanor. They were no longer passive observers, but active participants in the process. Jack observed the transformation with a quiet smile. "They're starting to get it," he remarked to Emma during a break. She nodded, feeling a sense of accomplishment. "It's not just about solving problems," she said. "It's about embracing the unknown and trusting yourself to figure things out." As the day wore on, the Valens grew more confident in their abilities. They started asking questions, seeking clarification, and even debating strategies among themselves. Emma encouraged this behavior, emphasizing that disagreement and discussion were natural parts of collaboration. By the time the final simulation ended, the Valens had achieved results far beyond what anyone had expected. Zyrak approached Emma afterward, his form glowing brighter than usual. "This has been enlightening," he said. "We are beginning to understand the value of flexibility and innovation." Emma smiled, feeling a surge of pride. "Adaptation isn't easy," she admitted, "but it's worth it. It's what keeps us moving forward." Before leaving the chamber, Liren lingered behind, her form shimmering softly. "Thank you," she said simply. "You've given us hope." Emma nodded, touched by the sincerity in her voice. "Hope is a powerful thing," she replied. "Hold on to it." As the day came to an end, Emma returned to her quarters, exhausted but satisfied. She reflected on the progress the Valens had made, realizing that they were capable of change if given the right tools and encouragement. Jack joined her briefly, offering a few words of praise before retreating to his own space. For the first time since arriving on Lyria 7, Emma felt a glimmer of optimism. The road ahead would be challenging, but she believed the Valens could rise to meet it one adjustment at a time. The days that followed were a whirlwind of activity for Emma Taylor and Jack Miller as they continued working with the Valens. The lessons had begun to take root, and the aliens showed signs of progress, but Emma knew that true understanding would only come through real-world challenges. She couldn't shake the feeling that the Valens needed something more than simulations and stories. They needed to face an actual crisis to see how adaptability worked in practice. Little did she know, fate was about to provide exactly that one morning. As Emma prepared for another day of teaching, the ground beneath the outpost began to tremble. At first, it was subtle, almost like a distant rumble, but within moments, the shaking grew violent. The walls of the outpost pulsed erratically, their usual soft glow replaced by chaotic flickering. Alarms blared throughout the structure, and the air buzzed with urgency. Emma rushed outside, her heart pounding, to find Jack already there, his face pale but focused. Above them, dark clouds swirled unnaturally fast, forming a massive storm that seemed to stretch across the entire horizon. The Valens emerged from the outpost in a state of panic. Their crystalline forms shimmered wildly, reflecting their fear and confusion. Zyrak tried to maintain order, but even he struggled to stay composed. "This is unprecedented," he said, his voice trembling slightly. "Our systems cannot handle such instability." Liren stood beside him, her form dimmer than usual, as if the crisis drained her energy. Emma realized immediately that this was no ordinary storm. It was a test of survival, one the Valens weren't prepared for. Jack turned to Emma, his expression grim. "We need to act fast," he said. "If we don't stabilize things soon, the whole outpost could collapse." Emma nodded, her mind racing. She knew they couldn't rely on the Valens' rigid methods to solve this problem. They needed to step up and guide them through the chaos. Taking a deep breath, she stepped forward and raised her voice to be heard over the growing wind. "Listen to me," she called out. "We can get through this, but we have to work together." Emma quickly organized the Valens into teams based on the skills they had learned during the simulations. Some were tasked with reinforcing the damaged structures, while others focused on securing food and water supplies. Jack took charge of stabilizing the power grid, using his engineering expertise to reroute energy and prevent a total blackout. Emma moved between the groups, offering guidance and encouragement, reminding everyone to stay calm and think creatively. At first, the Valens struggled. Their natural inclination was to follow strict protocols, but those protocols failed under the pressure of the storm. Several attempts to repair the outpost ended in frustration, and some Valens began to lose hope. Emma saw this and stepped in, urging them to trust themselves and try new approaches. "You've already proven you can adapt," she reminded them. "Now it's time to put that knowledge into action." Liren was the first to break free from the paralysis of fear. She abandoned the traditional method of repairing a damaged wall and instead used materials scavenged from nearby debris to create a makeshift barrier. Her success inspired others to follow suit, and slowly the Valens began to innovate. One group discovered that weaving flexible fibers into their repairs made the structures more resilient to the wind. Another team devised a way to collect rainwater using large sheets of translucent material salvaged from the outpost's outer layer. Jack worked tirelessly alongside the Valens, showing them how to use tools and techniques they had never considered before. He explained the importance of improvisation, demonstrating how even imperfect solutions could buy them time. His calm demeanor and practical advice helped steady the group, giving them the confidence to keep going as the hours passed. The storm showed no signs of abating, But the Valen's efforts began to pay off. The outpost, though battered, remained standing, and the power grid hummed steadily thanks to Jack's quick thinking. Food and water supplies were secured, and the teams worked together seamlessly, their earlier hesitation replaced by determination. Emma watched with pride as the Valens embraced the challenge, their glowing forms now steady and bright despite the chaos around them. Zyrak approached Emma during a brief lull in the storm, his form shimmering with gratitude. "You were right," he admitted. "Our old ways were holding us back. This crisis has shown us the value of flexibility and collaboration." Emma smiled, though she knew the storm wasn't over yet. "You're doing great," she said. "Keep trusting yourselves." By the time the storm finally subsided, the outpost was not only repaired but improved. The Valens had transformed its fragile structure into something stronger and more adaptable, incorporating lessons they had learned from both Emma and Jack. As the skies cleared and the twin suns reappeared, casting their golden light over the landscape, the Valens gathered to assess the damage and celebrate their success. Emma stood among them, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction. She had doubted herself at the start of this mission, unsure if she could truly make a difference. Now, seeing the Valens' resilience and newfound confidence, she knew she had accomplished something remarkable. Jack joined her, his usual quiet demeanor softened by a rare smile. "Not bad for a couple of humans," he said. Earning a laugh from Emma. Liri approached them, her form glowing brightly once more. "Thank you," she said simply. "You've shown us that change isn't something to fear, it's something to embrace." Emma nodded, touched by the sincerity in her voice. "That's the spirit," she replied. "You'll be fine now." As the Valens began cleaning up and rebuilding, Emma allowed herself a moment of reflection. She thought about all the challenges humanity had faced throughout history, and how each one had shaped them into who they were today. The Valens were no different. They just needed the right push to unlock their potential. And now, with their newfound understanding of adaptability, they stood a better chance of surviving whatever the future held. The aftermath of the storm left a profound mark on everyone at the outpost. The Valens, who had once clung rigidly to their traditions, now moved with a newfound sense of purpose. Their crystalline forms shimmered brightly, reflecting not just light but also confidence. Emma Taylor and Jack Miller watched as the aliens worked together to repair and improve the outpost, their actions smoother and more coordinated than before. It was clear that the crisis had changed them, forcing them to embrace adaptability in ways they never had before. Emma spent her days observing the Valens, offering advice when needed, but mostly letting them take the lead. She noticed how Liren, in particular, had blossomed. Once hesitant and reserved, she now stood at the forefront of every task, guiding her fellow Valens with calm authority. Her ability to think creatively and act decisively had earned her respect among her peers. Zyrak, too, seemed different. His earlier stiffness had softened, replaced by a willingness to listen and learn. He often approached Emma with questions, seeking to understand human perspectives on leadership and teamwork. Jack, meanwhile, focused on maintaining the outpost systems. The storm had pushed the structure to its limits, and while the repairs held steady, he knew they couldn't afford another close call. Using materials salvaged from the debris and tools he had brought from Earth, he began upgrading the outpost's infrastructure. He worked closely with a group of Valens who showed an aptitude for engineering, teaching them basic principles of design and problem-solving. At first, the Valens struggled to grasp concepts like redundancy and flexibility, but Jack's patient explanations helped them see the value in building systems that could adapt to unexpected challenges. One evening, as the twin suns dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the landscape, Emma sat outside the outpost with Jack. They sipped warm drinks, a rare luxury provided by the Valens, and reflected on the progress they had witnessed. "They've come a long way," Jack said, his voice soft but thoughtful. Emma nodded, her eyes scanning the glowing forms of the Valens as they moved about the outpost. "They really have," she replied. "I didn't think it was possible at first, but they're proving me wrong." Despite their achievements, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that there was still more to teach. Adaptability wasn't just about surviving crises. It was about thriving in the face of change. She wanted the Valens to see that embracing uncertainty could lead to growth and innovation, not just survival. With this in mind, she decided to introduce one final lesson, something that would challenge the Valens to think beyond their immediate needs. The next morning, Emma gathered the Valens in the central chamber, where holographic displays flickered softly against the translucent walls. She explained her plan, a collaborative project to create something entirely new, something that would benefit both their society and future generations. The idea was simple yet ambitious: to design and build a sustainable habitat capable of withstanding any environmental shift. It would require creativity, cooperation, and a willingness to experiment, qualities the Valens were only beginning to develop. Zyrak listened intently, his form glowing steadily as he considered the proposal. "This is a bold undertaking," he said finally, "but I believe we are ready." Liren stepped forward, her expression eager. "We can do this," she added. "We've already proven we can adapt. Now let's show what we can create." With Zyrak's approval, the project began. Emma divided the Valens into teams based on their strengths, assigning tasks ranging from structural design to resource management. Jack worked alongside the engineering team, helping them refine their ideas and implement practical solutions. Emma focused on fostering collaboration, encouraging the teams to share insights and support one another. She emphasized that failure was part of the process, urging them to view mistakes as opportunities to learn rather than reasons to give up. As the days turned into weeks, the project took shape. The Valens poured their energy into the task, their enthusiasm infectious. They experimented with new materials, combining elements from their environment with technologies inspired by Earth. One team developed a system for harvesting energy from the planet's magnetic field, while another designed living quarters that adjusted automatically to changes in temperature and air quality. The result was a habitat unlike anything they had built before, flexible, resilient, and uniquely suited to their needs. Throughout the process, Emma and Jack served as guides rather than leaders. They offered suggestions and answered questions, but allowed the Valens to take ownership of the project. This approach paid off as the Valens grew more confident in their abilities. They began proposing bold ideas, some of which even surprised Emma. One team suggested integrating natural elements into the habitat's design, creating spaces where plants and water features coexisted with technology. Another proposed a communal area where Valens could gather to share knowledge and celebrate achievements. These innovations reflected not just technical skill, but also a deeper understanding of community and connection. By the time the habitat was complete, it stood as a testament to the Valens' transformation. Its sleek, organic design blended seamlessly with the landscape, and its systems hummed with efficiency. The Valens gathered to admire their work, their glowing forms bright with pride. Zyrak addressed the group, his voice resonating with gratitude. "This is more than a structure," he said. "It is proof that we can change, that we can grow. We owe much of this to Emma Taylor and Jack Miller." Emma felt a lump rise in her throat as she looked around at the faces or forms of the Valens. She had started this journey unsure if she could make a difference, but now she saw the impact of her efforts. The Valens weren't just surviving anymore, they were thriving. Liren approached her, her form shimmering softly. "Thank you," she said simply. "You've given us a future." Emma smiled, her heart swelling with emotion. "You did the hard work," she replied. "I just pointed you in the right direction." Jack stood beside her, his usual quiet demeanor softened by a rare smile. "Not bad for a couple of humans," he quipped, earning a laugh from Emma and a ripple of amusement from the VEYLons. As the celebration continued, Emma allowed herself a moment of reflection. She thought about the challenges they had faced and the lessons they had shared. The Valens had learned to embrace change, to trust themselves and each other, and to see uncertainty not as a threat, but as an opportunity. In doing so, they had discovered a strength they never knew they had. For Emma, the experience had been transformative as well. She had come to Lyria 7, doubting her ability to teach an alien species about humanity's greatest asset, adaptability. Now, standing among the Valens, she realized that adaptability wasn't unique to humans. It was a universal trait, waiting to be unlocked in anyone willing to embrace it. The day finally came for Emma Taylor and Jack Miller to leave Lyria 7. The Valens had completed their sustainable habitat, and the outpost buzzed with a newfound sense of stability and hope. Emma felt a mix of emotions as she prepared to depart: pride in what the Valens had achieved, gratitude for the lessons they had shared, and a tinge of sadness at saying goodbye. She knew this moment would mark the end of an extraordinary chapter in her life. Zyrak and Liren accompanied Emma and Jack to the landing pad where their small spacecraft waited, its metallic surface gleaming under the twin suns. The air was calm. Now, a stark contrast to the chaos of the storm that had tested everyone's resolve. As they approached the ship, Zyrak spoke, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "Emma Taylor, Jack Miller, you have given us more than knowledge." He sighed. "You have given us a new way of thinking, a way to face the future without fear." Emma nodded, her throat tight with unspoken words. Liren stepped forward, her glowing form dimmer than usual, but radiant with sincerity. "We will not forget what you have taught us," she added. Emma took a deep breath, forcing herself to smile. "You don't need me anymore," she replied. "You've already proven you can adapt and grow. Trust yourselves, and you'll be fine." Jack, standing quietly beside her, gave a small nod of agreement. He had grown fond of the Valens during their time together, especially those who had worked alongside him on the engineering projects. Though he wasn't one for speeches, he managed a few heartfelt words. "Take care of each other," he said simply. "That's what keeps everything running." As Emma and Jack boarded the spacecraft, the Valens gathered around, their crystalline forms shimmering softly in farewell. Emma glanced back one last time, committing the scene to memory: the glowing figures, a vibrant landscape, and the outpost that now stood as a symbol of resilience and unity. Jack closed the hatch, and the engines hummed to life, lifting them gently off the ground. Once they were airborne, Emma settled into her seat, gazing out the window at the receding planet below. The colors of Lyria 7 faded into the distance, replaced by the vast expanse of space. She felt a profound sense of accomplishment, but also a lingering curiosity about the Valens' future. Would they continue to embrace change? Could they truly thrive in the face of uncertainty? These questions swirled in her mind, but deep down, she believed they would succeed. They had already shown remarkable growth, and that gave her hope. Jack broke the silence after a while, his voice thoughtful. "Do you think they'll really make it?" he asked, his eyes fixed on the controls. Emma turned to him, her expression calm but resolute. "They already have," she replied. "They've changed, Jack. You saw it yourself. They're not the same beings we met when we arrived." Jack nodded slowly, a faint smile playing on his lips. "Yeah," he said. "They've got guts. I'll give them that." The journey back to Earth quiet, the hum of the spacecraft filling the cabin as they traveled through the void. Emma spent much of the time reflecting on their mission, replaying moments in her mind, the simulations, the storm, the collaborative project. Each step had been a lesson not just for the Valens, but for her as well. She realized now how much she had underestimated their capacity for growth. They had faced their fears head-on, proving that adaptability wasn't limited to humans. It was a universal trait waiting to be unlocked. When they finally reached Earth, the familiar blue-green orb greeted them like an old friend. Jack guided the spacecraft to a landing site near their base, and as they disembarked, Emma felt the weight of gravity beneath her feet once more. It was comforting, grounding, yet part of her still felt connected to Lyria 7 and its inhabitants. She wondered if she would ever see the Valens again, or hear news of their progress. For now, though, she was content knowing she had made a difference. Over the following days, Emma returned to her routine, teaching survival skills to students eager to learn. But something had shifted within her. Her experiences on Lyria 7 had deepened her understanding of humanity's strengths and vulnerabilities. She found herself emphasizing not just practical skills, but also the importance of flexibility, collaboration, and resilience. Her students noticed the change, remarking on how passionate she seemed about her lessons. Emma smiled inwardly, knowing the Valens had left their mark on her as much as she had on them. Jack, too, carried the mission with him. He resumed his work maintaining equipment and tinkering with machines, but he often thought about the Valens' ingenuity and determination. Their willingness to experiment and learn reminded him of humanity's own journey, full of trial and error. He found himself approaching challenges with renewed creativity, inspired by the lessons he had witnessed firsthand. Months passed, and life on Earth continued as usual. Yet Emma couldn't shake the feeling that Lyria 7 was never far from her thoughts. She kept a small crystal fragment gifted to her by Lyrin as a reminder of their time together. It sat on her desk, catching the light and casting tiny rainbows across the room. Whenever she looked at it, she remembered the Valens' glowing forms, their unwavering curiosity, and their courage in the face of change. One evening, as Emma sat alone in her quarters, she allowed herself to dream about the future. She imagined the Valens thriving on Lyria 7, their society evolving in ways she could scarcely imagine. Perhaps they would explore beyond their planet, encountering other species and sharing their story of transformation. Maybe, someday, humans and Valens would meet again, exchanging knowledge and forging a bond that transcended worlds. For now, though, Emma focused on the present. She had returned home with a renewed appreciation for humanity's ability to adapt, to overcome, and to grow. That was what made humans special, not perfection, but persistence. And as she drifted off to sleep that night, she smiled, knowing that somewhere out there, the Valens were doing the same one adjustment at a time.